The Galactic Conclave chamber shimmered with light from 1,000 different sources, bioluminescent exhalations, radiant crystal refractors, and the steady hum of plasma conduits. It was a hall designed to awe, its enormity a testament to the unity of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Yet today, unity felt as fragile as spun glass. Humanity is late liqueur of the Galbrin said, his gelatinous form undulating with impatience. He tilted his eye stalk toward the central dais, the transparent floor beneath him rippling faintly in sympathy with his mood. "They're always late," Cromwell of the Vithari hissed. Her segmented legs clicked against the chamber floor as she adjusted her position, the glittering plates of her exoskeleton catching the light. "They think it's an art form. Punctuality is a virtue in civilized species, but humans treat it like an inconvenience." Silence High Consul Vrakta's crystalline form refracted sharp beams of light across the room as her command resonated through the chamber. "Humanity will arrive when it suits them. It's their nature to delay the inevitable." "Or to ignore it," Cromwell muttered, her mandibles snapping. The chamber doors opened at last, the sound sharp and deliberate. Into the room strode Marcus Hale alone, clad in the dark blue of Earth's diplomatic fleet. His boots struck the floor with a rhythmic precision that felt almost insolent. He carried no visible weapon, no entourage, and no visible fear. Silence swept the chamber as hundreds of alien eyes fixed on him. Hale's size was unremarkable compared to the towering Vorax or the chitinous Vithari, but something about the way he moved demanded attention. It wasn't arrogance. It was worse. It was confidence. Marcus Hale of the United Earth Alliance announced the chamber's automated herald. Hale stopped at the center dais, his hands clasped behind his back. His gaze swept across the gathered delegates before he spoke. "Apologies for the delay," he said, his tone polite but firm. "I had matters to attend to." The Vithari ambassador bristled, her claws clenching audibly. "Matters to attend to? Human, do you understand the gravity of this summons? The Vorax border incident." Skirmish, Hale corrected smoothly. Kramal's mandibles flared. "A skirmish? The Vorax mining colony is gone. Entire fleets annihilated." "They crossed into human territory," Hale replied evenly. "They attacked our people. We responded." The room erupted into a chorus of voices, some outraged, others incredulous. The High Consul raised a crystalline limb for silence. "Enough. Human, the issue is not whether you responded, but how. Your so-called proportional response destabilized the entire Zorath sector." Hale's expression didn't waver. "Their flagship fired first. We ended the threat. That is what any rational species would do." Lacour's gelatinous body rippled in alarm. "Any rational species? You obliterated 3 dreadnoughts and a planetary defense array. That's genocide, not rationality." Cromwell clicked her claws for emphasis. "Your kind is violent, impulsive, dangerous. For too long, we've tolerated your expansion, your defiance of conclave oversight. This is the line, human. Humanity must be dealt with before it destroys us all." Hale didn't blink. "Dealt with?" Interesting choice of words. "I'm curious, what exactly do you propose?" The chamber stilled. Then High Consul Vrakta leaned forward, her voice like a blade of pure light. "Effective immediately, the United Earth Alliance will submit to conclave oversight. Your fleets, your colonies, your weapons, all will be monitored and controlled. Any further acts of aggression will result in your complete disarmament." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Hale's face remained neutral, but his eyes darkened, the calm surface of his demeanor masking something far deeper. "Let me be clear," Hale said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "You're asking humanity to surrender its sovereignty. You forfeited your sovereignty the moment you became a threat to galactic stability," Cromwell snapped. "Accept the terms, human, or face the consequences." For a long moment, Hale said nothing. The silence grew heavy, each species in the chamber waiting for him to speak. Finally, he took a step back and gave a curt nod. "Thank you for clarifying," he said. "I'll relay your message." Without another word, Hale turned and strode out of the chamber. The doors closed behind him with a finality that felt almost ominous. 3 weeks passed. The galaxy waited for humanity's response, but there was none. The Conclave interpreted the silence as submission. The Vorix Empire, emboldened by the Conclave's proclamation, saw an opportunity. Their fleets poured into human space with brutal efficiency, targeting border colonies and outposts. Entire settlements were reduced to rubble. It was a show of force designed to break humanity's will. The first Vorix fleet never returned. The second fleet, larger and more heavily armed, vanished without explanation. By the time the third fleet crossed the border, the galaxy was paying attention. The Vorix flagship sent a single transmission before it was destroyed. They came out of nowhere. We didn't. The rest was static. Panic swept through the Conclave. What had humanity done? Reports trickled in from traders and scouts. Human ships, faster and deadlier than anything the galaxy had seen, patrolled the border. Colonies once thought abandoned were now bristling with defenses. The humans had been preparing for years, perhaps decades, for a moment like this. The High Consul convened an emergency session. As delegates argued and accused, the chamber doors opened once again. Marcus Hale entered, calm as ever. This time, however, he wasn't alone. Holographic projections of Earth's top leaders flanked him, their faces sharp and resolute. Ambassadors, Hale began, his voice filling the chamber. I understand you've been discussing humanity's future. Allow me to clarify it for you. Liqueur quivered nervously. What have you done? Hale's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. We defended ourselves. Cromwell slammed her claws against the table. This is madness. You've destroyed our fleets, destabilized trade routes, endangered billions. No, Hale interrupted, his tone icy. You endangered billions when you tried to strong-arm humanity. We tolerated your arrogance, your sanctions, your endless meddling. But patience, as you've now learned, has its limits. The chamber was silent. For the first time, the delegates truly saw humanity not as upstarts, but as equals. High Consul Vrakta's crystalline form dimmed as she spoke. What is it you want, human? Hale stepped forward, his gaze sweeping across the room. What we've always wanted. To be left alone. Withdraw your fleets. Rescind your sanctions. End your provocations. If you don't. He let the silence hang, the weight of his words speaking volumes. The Conclave, for all its power and history, had no answer. The Galactic Conclave's chambers were in disarray. Delegates who had once argued with sharp conviction now spoke in hushed tones, exchanging fearful glances. Humanity's demands weren't just unprecedented, they were a direct challenge to the Conclave's authority. For centuries, the Conclave had maintained peace through collective strength, its member species working together to suppress threats and enforce order. But now, the unity they relied on was unraveling, and humanity stood at the center of the storm. High Consul Vrakta called for an emergency recess. As the delegates dispersed, Cromwell of the Vithari approached Liqueur of the Galbrin. Your trembling, Cromwell sneered, her mandibles clicking with disdain. Typical of your kind. Liqueur's gelatinous form quivered, a translucent wave rippling through his body. Do you not understand, Cromwell? We have awakened something we cannot control. Humanity was patient, merciful, and we squandered it. Cromwell leaned closer, her chitinous claws flexing. Humanity is nothing more than an overreaching species that got lucky. The Conclave has dealt with far greater threats. We need only to crush them before they gain more power. Liqueur hesitated. And if we fail? Cromwell's mandibles flared. Then we deserve extinction. Meanwhile, Marcus Hale returned to Argus Station, where the United Earth Alliance's high command awaited him. The station, a massive construct orbiting the distant star Epsilon Eridani, was humanity's best-kept secret. Cloaked in quantum stealth fields and defended by an array of cutting-edge weaponry, Argus Station had been humanity's stronghold for decades. It was here that their strategy had been forged, their technologies perfected, and their patience carefully curated. Hale entered the Central Command Hub, where Admiral Reese and Dr. Elena Marek stood before a sprawling holomap. The map displayed the borders of human space, dotted with clusters of alien fleets and blinking indicators of recent Vorix incursions. "What's the situation?" Hale asked, his tone brisk. Reese gestured to the map. "The Vorix have pulled back entirely. Whatever we hit them with scared them senseless. Conclave fleets are holding position outside Zorth space. No signs of immediate aggression, but..." Marik cut in, her voice sharp and analytical. "But they're rearming. Consolidating. The Conclave is preparing for a counterstrike. They're not ready to back down yet." Hale nodded. "Good. Let them waste their time." Reese frowned. "You sound confident. Too confident. If they strike first." "They won't," Hale interrupted. "Not yet. They need the galaxy to believe they're still in control. But that illusion is crumbling, and they know it." Marik folded her arms. "Still, we can't rely on them to hesitate forever. We've pushed them into a corner, and desperation makes people unpredictable. If they bring their full force to bear, our defenses might not hold." Hale turned to her, his gaze steady. "That's why we won't wait for them to attack. We're going to force their hand." Reese raised an eyebrow. "What are you thinking?" Hale tapped a command into the holomap, zooming in on a distant star system near the edge of conclave space. "We take the initiative. Show them that we're not just defending, we're capable of striking back. Hard." Marik frowned. "You're talking about a preemptive assault." "Not assault," Hale said. "A demonstration." The demonstration began 1 week later. The target was Tyvara, a conclave-controlled system home to one of the galaxy's largest shipyards. While it wasn't a vital military asset, it was a symbol of conclave authority, a gleaming testament to their industrial might. Humanity's fleet arrived with precision that bordered on artistry. Ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their sleek hulls reflecting the system's twin suns. They moved with calculated efficiency, encircling the shipyard without firing a single shot. Conclave patrol ships scrambled to respond, their captains barking orders over panicked comms. But as the humans broadcast their message, the fighting stopped before it could begin. "This is Admiral Reese of the United Earth Alliance," came the transmission, his voice calm yet unyielding. "We have no intention of harming Tyvara or its people, but understand this: humanity will no longer tolerate threats to our sovereignty. The Conclave's authority ends where our borders begin." The message repeated once, then the human ships vanished as quickly as they had arrived. The galaxy's response was immediate. To some, humanity's show of strength was a reckless provocation, a challenge to the fragile peace that had kept the stars from burning for centuries. To others, it was an act of defiance long overdue, a signal that the Conclave's dominance was no longer absolute. But to the Conclave itself, it was a warning: humanity wasn't just defending its territory. It was reshaping the balance of power in the galaxy. In the aftermath of Tyvara, cracks began to form in the Conclave's alliances. Smaller member species, long resentful of the Conclave's heavy-handed rule, saw humanity as a potential ally, a shield against the galaxy's older, more predatory powers. The Urlian Commonwealth was the first to reach out. Their ambassador, a slender, amphibious creature named Kalrin, arrived at Argus Station under strict secrecy. In a private meeting with Hale and his advisors, Kalrin outlined the Urlian plight: constant raids by Vorix slavers, ignored by the Conclave despite decades of appeals for help. "We cannot fight them alone," Kalrin said, his voice tinged with desperation. "The Conclave has abandoned us, but you've shown the galaxy that there is another way, a way to stand against oppression." Hale leaned back in his chair, studying the ambassador carefully. "And what would the Commonwealth offer in return for our help?" Kalrin hesitated. "We are a small civilization. Our resources are limited, but our people are skilled scientists, engineers." "It's not about resources," Hale interrupted. "If we defend you, we set a precedent. Others will come to us, expecting the same. You need to understand what you're asking." Kalrin met his gaze, unflinching. "I understand. But if we fall, others will follow. The Vorix, the Conclave, they will not stop until the galaxy belongs to them. We need someone willing to say no, someone willing to fight." Hale glanced at Marik and Reese. both of whom nodded subtly. He turned back to Colrin. "Very well," he said. "We'll help you. But understand this, if we commit to this fight, we won't do it halfway. The Vorics won't just lose this battle, they'll lose their ability to threaten anyone, ever again." Colrin exhaled, a ripple of relief passing through his amphibious features. "Thank you. You won't regret this." Hale's expression remained grim. "I hope not." The attack on the Orlian Commonwealth came 3 weeks later. Vorics raiders swept into the system, expecting little resistance. Instead, they found a human fleet waiting for them. The battle was swift and decisive. Human ships moved with precision and ferocity, tearing through the Vorics fleet with terrifying efficiency. Every Orlian settlement was defended, every civilian freed. When the dust settled, the Voric survivors fled back to their empire, battered and humiliated. But the most significant moment came afterward, when Marcus Hale himself addressed the galaxy. Standing aboard the flagship Resolute, he broadcast a message to every corner of known space. "This is Marcus Hale of the United Earth Alliance. Today we stood with the Orlian Commonwealth against an unprovoked attack. We did so not out of conquest, but because it was the right thing to do. Let this be a warning: humanity will not stand by while the innocent are preyed upon. If you threaten the weak, you will answer to us." The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just defending itself anymore. It was stepping into a role no one had expected. A role the galaxy would never forget. The galaxy buzzed with shock and speculation after Marcus Hale's message. To some, humanity's declaration was an inspiring beacon of hope. To others, it was the first crack in the fragile equilibrium that had held for centuries. In the halls of the Galactic Conclave, it was nothing short of heresy. High Consul Vrakta convened an emergency session, her crystalline form flickering with agitation as she addressed the assembled delegates. "Humanity has overstepped," she began, her voice sharper than usual. "They have acted outside the bounds of the Conclave's authority, intervening in the affairs of sovereign species. If this is allowed to stand, the Conclave's legitimacy will be irreparably damaged." Cromwell of the Vithari clicked her mandibles in agreement. The humans are no longer content to defend their borders. They are positioning themselves as arbiters of galactic justice. This cannot be tolerated. Liquor of the Galbrin hesitated, his gelatinous form rippling uncertainly. "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The Vorics brought this upon themselves. If the Conclave had acted against their raids, humanity would not have intervened." Cromwell's claws slammed against the table. "You would defend the humans? They've already proven they cannot be trusted. Their patience was a facade, and now they believe themselves invincible." "Enough," Vrakta's voice rang out, silencing the chamber. "Whether their actions were justified is irrelevant. What matters is that the Conclave's authority has been challenged. We must act decisively to restore order." She gestured toward a holomap displaying human-controlled space. "I propose a full-scale coalition. The combined fleets of every member species will move to neutralize humanity's military capabilities. We will not destroy them, only ensure they are no longer a threat." The delegates murmured uneasily. A coalition fleet of that magnitude hadn't been assembled in centuries, not since the Great Threxan War. To deploy it against a single species, no matter how dangerous, was a gamble few were eager to take. Liquor quivered. "And if the humans resist," Cromwell hissed, "then they will learn the cost of defiance." On Argus Station, Marcus Hale stood before the central holomap, studying the latest intelligence reports. Fleet movements across Conclave space had increased dramatically. It was clear they were preparing for something big. Admiral Reese leaned against the console, his expression grim. "They're pulling everything they've got. This isn't just a show of force, it's an invasion." Dr. Elena Marek frowned, her fingers tapping rapidly against a data pad. "The coalition they're building is massive. If they hit us with their full strength, even our defenses might not hold." Hale nodded slowly. "They're desperate. This isn't just about us, they're fighting to preserve their power, their image. If they let us stand, they lose control of the galaxy." Reese folded his arms. "So what's the plan? Do we wait for them to come to us, or do we take the fight to them?" Hale's gaze hardened. "Neither. We don't fight their war, we fight ours." He gestured toward the map, highlighting a series of systems deep within conclave space. The coalition's strength lies in its unity. If we can fracture it, their invasion falls apart before it begins. Marek tilted her head. Fracture how? Their member species have been loyal to the conclave for millennia. Loyal out of fear, Hale replied. The smaller species resent the conclave's dominance. If we can show them that standing against us is more dangerous than standing with us, they'll reconsider their allegiance. Reese smirked. Divide and conquer. Classic human strategy. Hale allowed himself a faint smile. It works for a reason. The first stage of humanity's counter-strategy unfolded with surgical precision. Small, highly mobile fleets infiltrated conclave territory, targeting critical supply lines and communication relays. These strikes weren't random, they were designed to sow confusion and disrupt coordination between the coalition's forces. Simultaneously, diplomatic teams reached out to disaffected species within the conclave. Messages were sent to leaders who had long chafed under the conclave's rule, offering humanity's protection in exchange for neutrality or outright alliance. One by one, the cracks began to show. The Galfrian Syndicate, a trading consortium with a history of conflicts with the Vorics, declared its neutrality, refusing to contribute ships to the coalition. The Trelk sovereignty followed suit, citing humanity's defense of the Urlian Commonwealth as proof of their integrity. These defections emboldened others. By the time the coalition fleet was ready to mobilize, nearly a third of its promised ships had withdrawn. High Consul Vrakta stood at the command deck of the Luminary, the conclave's flagship, watching as the diminished coalition fleet assembled in orbit over the capital world. The sight filled her with a deep, crystalline dread. They're picking us apart, she murmured. Before we've even begun. Krummel, standing beside her, clicked her claws angrily. Then we strike now, before their sabotage spreads further. Delay only strengthens them. And what if we lose? Vrakta asked quietly. Krummel's mandibles flared. If we lose, it will be because we hesitated. The conclave cannot survive another blow to its authority. Better to fight and fall than to crumble without resistance. Vrakta's crystalline form dimmed. She didn't respond. The coalition fleet launched its assault 2 weeks later. Humanity was ready. The first wave of coalition ships encountered a minefield of gravitic disruptors as they entered human-controlled space. The devices, undetectable until activated, tore apart their formations, forcing them into disarray. Human fleets emerged from hyperspace moments later, striking with pinpoint precision. But this was only the beginning. As the battle raged, the humans deployed a new weapon and experimental device known as the Helios Array. Mounted on a massive station orbiting Proxima Centauri, the array unleashed beams of concentrated solar energy capable of piercing even the most advanced shielding. Entire squadrons of coalition ships were reduced to molten slag in seconds. The battle was over within hours. The coalition fleet, battered and broken, retreated into conclave space. Humanity didn't pursue. They didn't need to. The message was clear. The aftermath was chaos. The conclave's authority, already fragile, crumbled completely. Member species withdrew en masse, declaring their independence. The Vorics Empire, humiliated and weakened, retreated into isolation. In the midst of the chaos, Marcus Hale returned to the conclave chamber, this time invited. The chamber, once filled with hundreds of delegates, now held only a fraction of its former numbers. High Consul Vrakta, her crystalline form dim and fractured, regarded Hale with a weary gaze. "What now, human?" she asked. Hale's voice was calm, but there was no mistaking the steel beneath it. "Now you leave us alone. Humanity has no interest in ruling the galaxy. We don't want your power or your territory. We want peace." Vrakta's gaze sharpened. "And if we refuse?" Hale stepped closer, his eyes cold. "You've seen what happens when humanity loses its temper. Don't make us show you again." For a moment, the chamber was silent. Then Vrakta nodded, the faintest gesture of defeat. "Very well," she said. "The conclave will abide by your terms. For now." Hale's expression didn't waver. Let's hope it stays that way. The galaxy was changed. The collapse of the Conclave marked the end of an era. For centuries, it had stood as the galaxy's arbiter of peace, its enforcer of order. Now, it was little more than a hollow shell. The Vorix Empire withdrew into its borders, licking its wounds and issuing no further challenges. Smaller civilizations that had been subject to Conclave rule scrambled to fill the void, forging new alliances and redefining their positions in the galactic order. And at the center of it all was humanity. For the first time in its history, the United Earth Alliance found itself not only independent but influential. Smaller civilizations sought out its protection. Refugees from Vorix raids and Conclave collapse flocked to human space, drawn by its stability and promise of fairness. But humanity's ascent had come at a cost. Marcus Hale stood on the observation deck of Argus Station, staring out at the expanse of stars. In the distance, Earth glimmered faintly, a fragile blue dot against the void. Admiral Reese approached, his footsteps soft on the deck. They signed the agreement, he said, holding a data pad. The Conclave is officially withdrawing its fleets. They're calling it the Hale Accord. Hale didn't respond immediately. After a moment, he turned to face Reese. Do they mean it? Reese shrugged. For now. Their fleets are in shambles, and the Vorix aren't in any shape to challenge us again. But we both know this isn't over. Sooner or later, someone will decide we're too dangerous to exist. That's what I'm afraid of, Hale said quietly. Reese frowned. You won. Humanity won. Why do you look like someone just handed you the worst news of your life? Hale sighed. Because we've changed, Reese. Look at where we started, a fractured species on a single planet, barely able to keep ourselves from tearing each other apart. Now, the galaxy sees us as a force of nature. They don't admire us. They fear us. And you think that's a bad thing, Reese asked. I think it's dangerous, Hale replied. Fear leads to desperation, and desperation leads to war. If the galaxy comes together against us, we might not survive next time. Reese was silent for a moment, then set the data pad on a nearby console. Then maybe the answer isn't just survival. Maybe it's what we do with the time we've bought. Hale glanced at him. What are you saying? I'm saying the galaxy doesn't just need to fear us, Reese said. It needs to trust us. If we're the ones rewriting the rules, we'd better make sure they're rules worth following. In the months that followed, humanity began reshaping its role in the galaxy. The United Earth Alliance extended an offer to every species willing to work together, a new coalition, built not on dominance or fear but mutual respect and cooperation. Skepticism ran deep, especially among species that had faced humanity's wrath firsthand. But for others, the offer was a lifeline. The Erlian Commonwealth, still reeling from Vorix attacks, became the coalition's first member. The Galfrian Syndicate followed soon after, their merchants eager to trade under humanity's protective umbrella. Hale worked tirelessly, negotiating treaties, brokering alliances, and navigating the labyrinthine politics of species who had spent centuries distrusting one another. It was slow, grueling work, but it was necessary. Not everyone was convinced. On a distant world in Vorix-controlled space, a secret council convened. High-ranking officials from several of the galaxy's most militarized species gathered in the shadows, their faces obscured by holographic distortions. We cannot allow this to continue, one said, his voice sharp and mechanical. Humanity is consolidating power faster than we anticipated. If we do nothing, they will control the galaxy within a decade. Another figure, her insectoid limbs twitching nervously, replied, But what can we do? Their fleets are unmatched. Their technology surpasses even the conclaves. Attacking them directly would be suicide. Not if we strike from within, a third voice interjected. Their coalition is fragile. Alliances built on fear and desperation never last. If we undermine their credibility, expose their hypocrisy, the galaxy will turn against them. And if that fails, then we destroy them, the mechanical voice said coldly. By any means necessary. Humanity's coalition grew stronger, but tensions simmered beneath the surface. Species that had once been enemies were now expected to cooperate, and old grudges didn't die easily. trade disputes escalated into skirmishes. Diplomatic negotiations broke down over trivialities. The first major test came when a Vorax warlord launched an attack on a neutral colony near the coalition's borders. The attack was brutal, killing thousands and displacing tens of thousands more. Hale faced an impossible decision. The coalition's charter required a unified response, but many members were reluctant to provoke the Vorax further. Meanwhile, refugees poured into human space, begging for protection. After hours of heated debate, Hale made the call. A joint task force, led by humanity's fleets, entered Vorax space. The warlord's forces were destroyed, his strongholds razed to the ground. But the victory came at a cost. Several coalition species withdrew their support, accusing humanity of acting unilaterally. The cracks were beginning to show. As tensions rose, an unexpected message arrived at Argus Station. The holographic projection of High Consul Vrakta appeared in the command hub, her crystalline form dim and fractured. "Marcus Hale," she said, her voice subdued. "You and I have much to discuss." Hale raised an eyebrow. "I thought the Conclave wanted nothing more to do with us." "The Conclave no longer exists," Vrakta replied. "At least not as it once did. But I am not here as your enemy. I am here to warn you." Hale frowned. "Warn me about what?" The Council Vrakta said, "A coalition of species formed in secret. They intend to destroy you, your fleets, your coalition, your people. They believe the galaxy will not survive if humanity continues to rise." Hale's jaw tightened. "And why are you telling me this?" Vrakta's form flickered, her voice tinged with something almost like regret. "Because I was wrong about you, Marcus Hale. I mistook your patience for weakness, your defiance for recklessness. But now I see what you truly are: a leader, a protector. The galaxy needs you, even if it doesn't realize it yet." Hale studied her carefully. "And what do you want in return for this warning?" "Only that you succeed," Vrakta said. "Because if you fail, we all will." The attack came 3 weeks later. A fleet of unprecedented size, composed of ships from dozens of species, launched a coordinated assault on coalition space. They struck with precision, targeting human colonies and key trade routes, seeking to fracture the coalition before it could respond. But humanity was ready. Using intelligence provided by Vrakta, the coalition had prepared for the assault. Human fleets took the brunt of the attack, holding the line while coalition forces regrouped. It was a brutal, desperate battle, fought across dozens of systems. In the end, the attackers were defeated. Their fleets were shattered, their leaders captured or killed. But the cost was staggering. Thousands of lives were lost, and the coalition's unity was strained to its breaking point. After the battle, Hale addressed the galaxy one final time. "This war could have been avoided," he began. "But some believed humanity was a threat to be destroyed. They mistook our willingness to defend ourselves as proof of our ambition. Let me be clear: humanity has no desire to conquer the galaxy. We seek only peace, but we will not tolerate aggression. To those who wish to harm us or our allies, know this: we will stand together. We will endure, and we will prevail." The message spread across the stars, its meaning unmistakable. Humanity had proven its strength once again, but this time they weren't alone. The galaxy would never forget the moment humanity lost its temper. But they would also never forget what came after.